Hello, welcome. So we're in the kitchen today because it's a nice change of scenery. So what we're going to talk about today is doubt and gratitude. So what's tricky about talking about gratitude is that it's been discussed a lot. And what I've noticed when something has been discussed a lot, it becomes kind of codified in the society, and so everybody assumes that they know what gratitude is. And what I have been discovering in my own life and in the work that I've been doing with others is there's this whole realm of gratitude that's actually opening up quite a bit these days. And by that I mean it. The sensations of gratitude and the possibilities of gratitude are just really expanding quite a bit lately. It turns out that a lot of things that we think of as gratitude are not, and it's easier to kind of change it and experience it for yourself than for me to just describe it, because then it's just staying in the nutty box and it's just staying in the information center. And what I've been discovering over the past few years, but especially, like I said, this whole new level depth of it is gratitude is a full body experience. It is not a mental experience. There may be some elements of choices in kind of positioning yourself for it, but it has a lot to do with receiving. And receiving has everything to do with barriers down. And nothing in our culture is geared towards barriers down. Everything, children's stories, everything is geared towards barriers up, protect and defend, resist and fight. It's all combative. And as it gets more combative, there's this other thing that's going on, which is like a new reality of receiving. What it is, how you can experience, how you can access it, how you can stand in it, how you can live in it. And when you're living in gratitude, it's not subservient. It's not, please, Mr. God, can I have a little, something to survive? It's not that at all. But if your capacity for receiving is narrowed or limited because of having received crap in the past, then your experience of gratitude is going to be narrowed and limited as well. There's so much trauma kind of in aftershock and aftershock and aftershock, all for the past 4 years, and even still, even here in January, we're in February now, but it's just been like aftershock and aftershock and aftershock. And what's really good about that, there's many gifts to trauma, and there's many gifts to shock that when you haven't been through them yet, and you haven't been in relationship with them long enough to get their gifts, there doesn't seem to be any benefits of shock or trauma. But they're both kindnesses. They're both the system doing what it needs to do in the moment to, it's a genius strategy to get to the next place. Shock helps to kind of, and trauma too, in a sense, put things in stasis kind of till you can get to them later, which is a kindness. And on the other side of the kind of the violent first shock of whatever the trauma is, or, that's when shock comes. It's just abrupt and it's just horrible. And because of the way our culture is, because of the way society thinks about shock or trauma and all the judgments and labels, it makes it very difficult to actually be in a relationship with the source of the trauma, what happened. And it's not really what happened that is hurting over and over and over. It's the resistance to it and all the judgments. And this is bad and wrong, and therefore I'm bad and wrong, or it shouldn't have happened. Whatever the overlays of resistance are, because remember, resistance is the super glue of the universe. It just keeps you stuck on whatever it is that you're resisting. You can't. Just a tremendous amount of force is going into whatever you're resisting. And we get traumatized and we go into shock because something bad happened, right? It makes total sense. And then the way that culture responds, the stories that culture has about whatever the bad thing was that happened, in fact, our thinking about what just happened to us. And then we are kind of working the judgments and aligning and agreeing with them, or resisting and rebelling against them, but we're not actually in relationship with what happened. So trauma is just a really big thing right now, and it's very up. I thought when I started this, I was going to be talking about doubt and gratitude. Turns out trauma wants to talk. And doubt plays a role in all of this. One of the things about the culture of competition, where something has to be good and something's good and something's bad, something's right and something's wrong, something's better than something else. And when that's the structure of how we think about everything, we don't necessarily know that we're thinking about it like that, but that's the structure. Think of the bed of the river as the structure of how the river is going to flow. So with all of this competition in the way that we think, the structure of how we think, doubt is a big part of that. And there's not anything that happens. Is that true? A lot of things that happen to us that are difficult and that are trauma-inducing have a tremendous amount of projections and conclusions and decisions that label the person who has had this thing happen to as wrong or weak or whatever. So then, even before we know what happened to us, we're using that frame of reference, that USA Today, Time Warner version of the world reference system, to evaluate what happened and what does that tell me about me, and what does that tell me about the world, and what's possible and what's not possible. Because that's kind of the point of evaluating, is to kind of put some parameters around what you're dealing with. So when something that shouldn't happen happens to a child, And the child is trying to grapple with it. Or an adult. And the adult's trying to figure out what the hell just happened. And we're going to this, Reader's Digest value system to decide. It riddles us with doubt. So we can't, it just makes it all the harder. So then we're wrestling with the doubt. We're wrestling with the shame. We're wrestling with the projections of other people, wrestling with the conclusions, decisions, assumptions, and the projected guilt and shame, and who's at fault and who's to blame. That and all of that stuff is really consuming. And it completely takes you away from, okay, body, what happened and what do we need right now? And how, what's the kindest way? Now, I'm not talking about indulging. I'm not talking about, ostrich things. I'm talking about kindness, which is really showing up. Kindness is showing up. So what do we need? What do we need? What do we need? What do we require in this moment? And to be really kind, because part of that competition thing sets it up that being kind to yourself is being indulgent or being wallowing. I was working with somebody who was kind of you're supposed to go through a discovery process. And instead of dealing with all of the judgments and all of the resistance, you actually go into the room, metaphorical room, and uncover and discover what actually happened. And when you can do that with resources, you're going in there with resources, information, different information than what you've had another person. Then you can go in there with kindness and find the part of you that got stuck. That's what trauma is. You're stuck. And then you can be in relationship with whatever happened and the you that got stuck there. And there's things that can happen that reveal a lot of information. And then you will discover in that moment that everything that you have been doing makes complete sense based on what happened. And you'll actually be able to see the genius of whatever it is that you did to survive whatever happened. And organically, not intellectually, but then organically. All of this is organic. None of this is intellectual. And then that part can be unstuck. And you can have her power, wisdom, joie de vivre, enthusiasm, life force energy. And she or he can come out of the cave. So for whatever reasons, the society that as we have known it doesn't want you to do that. It wants to pretend nothing's wrong or nobody's bad or incest doesn't happen or, whatever it wants to, whatever the invested point of view is. So in that Time Warner version of the world, having you doubt yourself is actually very useful. Because if you're doubting you, then it's harder for you to be on your side. In fact, doubting is like you have to leave you and go stand over there and look at you from how they see you and how they're judging you and agree with them. That's basically what this doubting thing is. So when we've been traumatized, when we've been abused, when we've been lied to, when we've been betrayed, and everybody's been these things to some degree or another, some more than others. Every time that happens, based on the information, the Time Warner version of the world that we have, every time that happens, it's like a little, like a paper cut or, a razor slice. And then the conventional wisdom that comes with that Time Warner version of the world is to steal up. Everything in our world right now is about fighting, defending and protecting. And we just have a lot of different ideas of what we're defending and protecting. Some are crazier than others. So as long as you're in the defending and protecting, you're not receiving. You just, you try to get in there, right? So the story goes that if you let your barriers down, you're going to receive a bunch of pain or a bunch of abuse or a bunch of whatever it is that you don't want to receive. And the truth is, you've already received it. It's already happened. And if you stay stuck in that defense posture, you're going to energetically, however unintentionally, you're going to energetically resonate to why you need to defend yourself. And everything is resonance. And so it's like birds of a feather, except icky. And so when you expect, you're projecting, right? So when you expect to get in trouble, when you expect things to go wrong, when you expect people to screw you, you're expecting that based on a body of evidence over time. And you have examples all through your life of when those things happened. And then every time it does happen, you tick it off. It's like, see, that just proves that I was right. The problem is that at the origin place, whenever the origin place was, something happened, and you made conclusions, decisions, assumptions about the way the world is, about the way other people are, and about the way you are. And then they kind of, if it was an intense experience, then they all kind of got locked in, like this is the way the world is. And so you end up having this filter. So based on what happened and the conclusions, decisions, assumptions of what happened, this is how life is. And so you're going through life trying to perceive through this filter. And it's, it's got enough gaps in it that you can't actually see through it. But if you imagine this as like vibrations, then you've set up this particular chord. And so you're going to be attuned to this chord. And you're only going to register the stuff that happens in that range. So anything outside of that range of experience doesn't exist for you. The same way, if you look at a graph of the spectrum of vibration of light, it's like really big. And human sight is a very small part of the range, right? So now, because of the conclusions, decisions, assumptions, we have this very small range that we identify as the way life is and the way people are and the way we are. And anything that happens outside of that, we really can't see it, or it doesn't register. It's just like, huh. This is one of the reasons that hope is so challenging for people, is because it's outside of that range, that particular familiar, proven over and over again range. But it's proven over and over again because of adherence to that range. All these other things are happening, but they don't register because of events. We're attuned to that range. So hopefully that makes sense. So one of the things that I'm seeing is there's like an exhaustion. And in this, in the Time Warner version, there's exhaustion of the story, there's exhaustion of the political events or weather events, or there's a lot of stimulation to be exhausted by in our own personal lives, right? But what I'm noticing is that people are saying, I can't figure it out. I'm smart. I try really hard, and I can't figure it out. And so I quit. And the beauty of that is that it's like saying, there has to be more than this range. And I'm not going to protect and defend this range anymore. I'm going to barriers down, just drop all the barriers. Even if you don't know what that means. Sometimes people call it surrender. Time Warner sometimes calls it giving up. So it's an energetic quality of not fighting anymore. And it's like asking the universe for what else is there, because I'm not doing this anymore. And when we do that, then all kinds of possibilities. It isn't that they just finally showed up. It's that we could finally see them. And it's, and all the steps along the way, the Time Warner version of the world may say, you're bad and wrong for what you thought yesterday. But the truth is that when you are live, you know different today than you did yesterday. And it isn't that you're flip-flopping or wishy-washy. It's that you know different information today than you did yesterday. Yesterday, you were making the best decisions based on the information you had, and you'll do that again today, and then you'll do that again tomorrow. And if you're live and not in reruns, then your perceptions will change, and what's possible for you will change. And part of the great thing that happens with the barriers down is that you can receive more, because all this other stuff is available beyond that narrow band. So a way to say what's happening these days is that new realities and possibilities are coming forth and being born, let's say. And as these things change, I mean, this is a multidimensional place that we live, and you're a multidimensional being. So there's a lot of multidimensional stuff going on. And you can't track it all with the analyzer. And there's just a lot of transformation that's happening. It's like spring in the West. It's a violent affair. And things are cracking open and falling apart. And other things are, like the snowfall in the mountains. But then at the same time, the seeds are cracking and they're germinating and they're going to be sprouting in a little while. There's a lot that's going on in this real life thing. And as much as the competitive domination, oppression energy that's been around for a few thousand years is getting meaner and more overt, it's also getting quieter and more subtle. And simultaneously, there's more lusciousness regular people are having more lusciousness, not because of anything. They're just able to have the experience of the lusciousness of life. So the programming that's been keeping, the oppression and the competition structures going is all cracking. And along with the kind of breakdown, there's this just luscious breakthrough energy of amazing possibilities that we've been lied to, that and told that they didn't exist. The Time Warner version of the world says they don't exist, and yet this lusciousness exists. Sorry for the gurgling of the dishwasher if you can hear that, but it's very lifelike, right? So to be in a place where you can be open to the possibilities. And, it depends on where you are. There's no wrong step on the path, and it's all a spiritual journey. So it's all the path. And there are times when you need to hunker down, or you need to be mad, or you need to cry. All of those things are great. They're really great. And there's times for the discovery process of, what did happen. And to be kind in the discovery process, even if kindness means, really cussing everybody out. That can be a very kind thing to do to yourself, is to allow yourself to be really pissed. So whatever way, or from where you are, I love this from Teddy Roosevelt. Do all you can with what you have from where you are. And if you do that every day, in 3 weeks, you'll be surprised at how your life is transformed. So today, given the tools and the information you have right here, right now, how can you be kind to you? What would that look like? And if you have no idea how to be kind to you, ask, what would being kind to your best friend look like? And or think of a movie where there were best friends and think of how they treated each other. There are examples of how to be kind to you, and there are really good reasons why you might not know what that looks like. So be kind to yourself about that, and see how much kindness you can have for no good reason, right? So all the circumstances can be the same, but you're going to be kind to you in this moment. So like touching yourself in a friendly way, like, I like you. Hello, body, is a kindness, because that's one of body's primary languages, is touch. So you can be kind by what foods you eat, or by drinking water is a kindness. It can be kind to watch a bunch of Netflix, or it can be kind to go for a walk. If your intention is to be kind, not to run away from you, but to be kind to you, you will be guided. You will be guided. It will feel better. Then kindness feels better than meanness or avoidance or resistance or running away from yourself. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot more that you're dealing with than you know. And that's just really true, because you are a lot more than you have previously recognized or been told. So here's to being kind to you, and maybe even having fun exploring what that might look like in this moment. So thank you for spending some time with me. Leave comments. I hope this was useful, and I will see you soon.